Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me.
Hell no.
John Fink.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph, childress.
DJ Khaled, you know the big DJ Khaled guy?
Hands brought up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastor.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
Drink responsibly tonight. I'll be drinking with you.
Jerel, McNeal.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
It is a Sunday night edition of After Dark on this Sunday evening, December the 17th. It's great to have you all with us, everybody. Hope you got your Christmas shopping on the way, and if you haven't, what are you doing? I'm John Fanta. We got the pride and the Clemson Tigers on here. Terrence Oglesby. We got the pride of the Marquette Golden Eagles, Jerel, McNeal. Both your teams, fellas, are having a great start to their seasons. We could even talk about them at some point in the hour. But I want to start with you guys here after an amazing weekend of college hoops. We got a rundown tonight. Big show. We'll have some coverage from Illinois, from Jeff Goodman. We'll break down USC Auburn in a second. It was a great day, a great weekend of college basketball. But Terrence Oglesby, when you think about the state of the sport that we love right now, after this weekend, so much happened, you're going to hit on it in the next hour. What would be your message to America after what we just saw in the last 72 hours?
It is as healthy as it's been in a long time. And there's as much depth in the country. There's as many good teams in the country as we have had in forever. And I think the bubble is going to be fairly big this year because there's a lot of really good teams this year. And if you're not sure if you're going to jump fully in the college basketball wagon, you should have watched the CBS game between Kentucky and North Carolina. Through the first 8 minutes of the game, that second TV timeout, I'm sitting there watching the game, and I had to rewatch it this morning because I was working last night. But I had to rewatch it this morning. I got goosebumps at 11:30 in the morning watching these two electric, super talented teams led by freshmen on one end, older dudes on the other, and there's just so many ways to skin a cat. And there's so many different teams doing it so many different ways. It is so intriguing. College basketball has never been healthier.
Jerel?
Absolutely. And just going off of that, like T.O. said, I think the biggest message right now is that kind of nobody knows anything still. And we have a ton of teams right now outside of Purdue, I would say Arizona, a couple more of the top teams. We know Kentucky's going to be really good this year, UConn, Marquette. But outside of that, kind of everything is up for grabs. We got some teams that were some sleeping giants looking like they're starting or about ready to wake up now. Michigan State grabbing a big win over Baylor, those type of things. So I think the biggest message right now is that it's a ton of parity. Everything is really up for grabs. There are no, outside of Purdue and Arizona right now, there are no completely dominant teams. And it's going to be a fun quarter into the season right here as these teams start to get into conference play.
What's
Absolutely
crazy, John, is I think that I've said this about 30 teams. They're a second weekend team, probably 30 teams. And there could only be 16 second weekend teams. And I've said it about 30 of them. Like, there's so much potential to get to that next weekend. I think there's still only a handful of national championship contenders. There's 5 to 8 in my mind. But after that, the parity just skyrockets. It balloons after those 5 to 8. That's the great thing about college basketball right now. And there's just a lot of good basketball being played. I understand there's still some ugliness to the college game, but there's beauty in the havoc that is college basketball, that's for sure.
Terrence, can I ask you this? Because I think our listeners, our viewers then want to know. And if you're not comfortable going through all 5, like, who are the 3 teams that you feel the most confident about when you're watching?
You know what? I really like UConn's size and physicality. They just continue to be really good. I thought that they would win by double digits going to Spokane. They did. They were dominant pretty much the entirety of the game. Purdue, still have to love them. We're going to talk about Purdue later today. I have one apprehensive thought about Purdue because we all know the constant in Zach Edey. It's the things around Zach Edey. That's what I'm worried about. But I'm still high on the Boilermakers. Arizona, I'm still there. They may not play Purdue, to get to the national championship because you never know what could happen. And then if I had to throw some more after that, Marquette's a tough guard. And in a country where guys rely so much on defense, you still got to score. And if Marquette can score 90 points for 6 games, which I think is possible, they could win the national championship. There's just so much. That's the big thing for me right now.
Great stuff. I mean, it is that type of year in this sport where I'm with you. I think that there are 5 to 8 great teams that belong in Tier A, but that Tier A is deeper, it feels like, this year. It's not just 2 or 3. You could make a case right now. We're not even mentioning Houston. I'm not going to write off Baylor off one performance against Michigan State. It was a de facto Michigan State home game. Desperation came out of the Spartans. Scott Drew's team will learn from that. But that's what stands out. Jerel, I do want to get this from you before we get into today's games. You just heard Arizona. You heard Purdue. You heard UConn. You heard Marquette. I mean, you make a case for them. If out of those teams at the top of the rankings, if Jerel McNeal right now was to put the bet in on one team as his national championship favorite, give me that team and make the case for them to America.
If I had to do it right now, and if it's just going off recent history and just the way the things been through this first quarter of the season, I think it's definitely got to be Purdue. It's definitely got to be Purdue. Obviously, Zach Edey, everybody talks about him. He's a game changer. Easily probably the most dominant player in college basketball for the last 2 years. And he's a load. But now, man, they've just retooled. And I think kind of their shortcoming over the years has been, are they going to be able to win different ways? And I think just in this season alone, they showed through the non-conference schedule that they're able to win different ways. His presence is going to be felt one way or another, but with Braden Smith taking the next step, playing like one of the best point guards in college basketball, ready and willing this year to make all the extra plays and make the right reads and take big shots when he needs to. And I think Fletcher Lurie gives them a different dimension as well, too, when he's making shots, man. They just got a lot more pieces, and with Jones as well, too, on the perimeter, where they can do and they can win a lot of different ways. And it's hard to kind of circumvent that. They're good on both sides of the ball. They can beat you by scoring 90, or they can beat you playing in the 60s. I think that's been the most impressive team so far this year.
Maui Invitational champions. They beat Arizona yesterday. I mean, to win that Maui, to beat Gonzaga, to beat Tennessee in a grinder of a game, and then beat Marquette. Simply incredible start to the year for Zach Edey and the Boilers. Let's get to today's action here, folks. One of the best games of the day heading into it turned out to be a really commanding win for the Auburn Tigers. Final score 91-75. Auburn beats USC, and don't look now, but the Trojans are 5-5 on the season. Aiden Holloway goes for 15 points. Jalen Williams with 14 points. Auburn's offense just overwhelmed USC. But Terrence Oglesby, did today teach you more for, okay, Auburn, maybe they belong in the top 20 nationally, they could be that type of team this year? Or was it more about the fact that we look at this USC team and say, wait a minute, they're 5-5 on the season?
A couple things. Firstly, Neville Arena is so tough to play at, considering since Bruce Pearl's got there. I mean, they were in the dumps before he got there. He's able to build it. The fanfare is crazy. And then on top of that, you have the natural circus that is the Bronny James and Isaiah Collier show. So those things kind of factor in. They're still freshmen. Like, we have to keep that in mind, too. I understand we're a month into the season. They're 5-5. That's 10 games in. I can do math. That's good news. Secondly, I'm a little shocked that they struggled handling Auburn's pressure because they had Boogie Ellis. They have Isaiah Collier. They have Bronny James, a bunch of guys that you would look at and you would think, well, these are these are 3 guards that should be able to handle pressure, not Auburn's pressure. And this sounds like a Rob Dauster stat, but I want to say the last X amount of national champs were in the top 25 in both offense and defense outside of a UConn team. If you bring up KenPom doesn't lie. And now Auburn is 8th in KenPom. They're 14th in offense. They're 15th in defense. And they have a lightning rod of a scorer in Aiden Holloway. They have an anchor and a post in Janai Broom. we haven't talked about Auburn enough. And I think they could not only be a top 20 team, they could be a top 15, top 10 team by the time it's all said and done, just because they have been consistent with their production. Look, they lost at Appalachian State in the biggest game Boone's had as far as basketball is concerned in the last 50 years. They lost a game against Baylor, first game of the season at the Pentagon. This is an Auburn team that is going to win 25 games. They are that good. And that's the bottom line, and they have go-to scoring. That's the big thing. When games get ugly, you try to scheme defensively. You got to have guys you can get the ball to and say, "Hey, go get me one." I think they got two of them with Holloway and Janai Broome. I think Auburn's dangerous. I think Southern Cal is young. I think it's two wildly different things.
Jerel, where do you stand on Auburn's 16-point win over USC?
And I think just going off what T.O. said, it's kind of the same thing. I kind of been impressed, and my eyes kind of lit up a little bit the first time I saw Auburn when they controlled the majority of that first opening night game against Baylor. And to be honest, I thought I was really high on Baylor. I thought they had a really good unit. Obviously, some good players with Ray J. Dennis and Jacoby Walker. But I was impressed by Auburn, just the way that they hung tough and the way that they kind of played. And tonight, they're going to play a certain style under Bruce Pearl. They're going to pressure you. They're going to get after you. They got guys that play like their hair is on fire on the defensive end, and they're going to get after you and try to guard a lot. And I think the only real questions was just whether Aiden Holloway was going to be able to keep up the way that he's been playing. He gives them a different dimension, playing in high ball screens and being able to make plays for others and be a threat to score off of the pick and roll situations. And tonight, honestly, to be honest, it was just a little bit more surprising, more so about USC and just seeing those guys. Obviously, we know they're a young team, but at the same time, obviously they got a lot more fanfare and things like that because they have some really highly touted young guys with Bronny James and Isaiah Collier, but those guys are young. They're gonna have growing pains, and they're gonna have to kind of figure it out. Right now, I feel like Auburn is really ahead of the curve because I feel like they're figuring out kind of their identity in a way that they can win games and be really effective pretty quick into the season right now. And right now, they're gonna be a group to be reckoned with, and I easily see them finishing in the top 4 teams in the SEC right now. So.
Hey, Jerel, you played at Marquette. You were 11-point-a-game guy your freshman year. Then you went 14, 15, 20. Aiden Holloway's a bucket, too. So what do you see whenever – because you're on the circuit. You've seen all these guys play. What made you confident that fit was going to be good for Bruce Pearl?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just and I know this a little bit, and it just kind of dates me a little bit Coach Pearl recruited me coming out of high school when he was at UW in Milwaukee, and let's be clear, he had that thing, John. He had that thing busting up there in UWM for a minute. They made a couple deep runs. I think they made a Sweet 16, and they had some really good guys. Some hoopers, man, that went on to go pro and play for a long time, not necessarily in the NBA, but man, and then from there, I think that's where he jumped from. I want to say Tennessee. He went Tennessee after that because I was in school at that time when he went Tennessee. But man, he's a different kind of cat, man. A real players coach. Guys kind of feed into that day, and I think the biggest thing was that he realized what he had with Aiden Holloway. It was another guy that I was able to see on the EYBL circuit for a while. And he has a very specific skill set, and in college basketball, playing in a high pick and roll, if you can shoot that ball and be a threat to shoot the ball coming off the high pick and roll, and you're quick enough to turn the corner on most bigs and make reads and rotational passes, you're going to have success in the game. And I think he gives them a different dimension. Obviously, it took a second to figure it out, so he went from coming off of the bench and then, to now being a starter. But, man, just seeing that, it just kind of lets you know the vibe and, the kind of coach that Coach Pearl is. He's giving that guy confidence. At the same time, he's kind of blending it all in within the course of the team. He's not pissing the older guys off. They're okay with it. They're still a major part of everything that they're doing. So everybody's kind of bought in. So that's why I said I think they're kind of just figuring out their identity early on in a way that they can have success. So which is cool to see.
So I love the question from UTL. which leads me to the follow-up. And, Jerel, you might have a story here, but I'll ask Terrence first because you said Bruce Pearl also was recruiting you, Terrence. Tell me about Bruce Pearl from what you remember back then to when you think about his career arc now and the job that he's done at Auburn. It's not like it's the easiest of jobs in the SEC, or it wasn't when he took over. What he's turned it into, you alluded to it with Neville.
Yeah, look, he brought in some different type of dudes. And he had that thing rocking at Tennessee, too. They had Chris Lofton, Juwan Smith at that time, if you remember, Jerel. Like, I was going to be part of that next group of guys. But he followed Tony Jones a little too much, who was an assistant who doesn't know what the hell he's looking at. And I'm not throwing shade. Just Tony Jones is an idiot. Actually, I am throwing shade. So there you go.
Yeah, you just shade. Sorry,
but
Tony.
He followed him, and now he's got a staff around him at Auburn that he really trusts. Steve's on that staff. He's got guys who can really recruit. Nobody recruits Atlanta like our man Bruce Pearl. So he has found a place that works for him, where he can get players consistently, and he's a really good evaluator of talent. And he's realized that he can trust his own eyes. And he is quite good at it. And as far as the energy is concerned, he understands the gambit. You're not just a coach when you're coaching college basketball. You're a CEO. You're a director of operations, basically, when it comes to what kind of guys that you're going to have running the things around the program. What are the students going to do? Are they going to be involved? He understands all those things. And it's almost like the ability, whenever he left Tennessee, not under his own terms, whenever he left Tennessee, he could take a step back and really reevaluate what he wanted to be good at. And he has turned a program in Auburn that was basically dormant before he got there to a national power.
Now, here's the other side of today's game. USC is 5-5, and they've essentially wrapped up non-conference play without a Quadrant 1 win. They're 0-2 in Quad 1, 3-0 in Q4. They own a Quadrant 3 loss. They lost to Long Beach State last week. If the NCAA Tournament started today, USC would not be in the field. I will sound the panic button for the Trojans. This was supposed to be a team that we thought would be top 20, maybe top 15. But it just feels like, Jerel, right now, not only do you have them struggling, but let's face it, the Bronny James situation, that creates a whole different dimension to a locker room.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's a lot of it's kind of a lot of unheralded pressure for those guys. And those guys are able to kind of they kind of get caught up in the vacuum of what Bronny James is. And like I said, obviously it's not his fault. This kid's been dealing with that the majority of his life. You know what I mean? Like, and it's follow him because he's another guy. Like I said, I got an opportunity to watch him on the circuit, and just an absolute great kid, a class act, man. Handles it the right way consistently, but it is a lot of attention and a lot of added focus and things like that, where a lot of outside distractions can become a problem for a group that is trying to focus in and win games. After the Long Beach State game, tonight was a game that you at least wanted to see them show up and kind of look like they were in the same realm as an Auburn team.
Jerel, you saw Bronny on the circuit, so you know what he does. What's the thought process? Because obviously the common fan, okay, or the listener or viewer out there looks at Bronny James and automatically you know what they equivocate him to. But give us the real evaluation from watching him on the circuit and what you project Bronny James to be.
Yeah, and this is coming from me, and I was a guy who we played against him. I had to do the scout and everything for him. And first of all, is that the first thing that stands out about Bronny to me was number one, his basketball IQ. You can tell that he's LeBron James' son. He understands the game. He understands read. He understands rotation. He understands how to pass the ball and the way to play the game the right way, free flowing, and get his teammates involved in the game. Obviously, early on in this, I would say in his high school career at least, To start off, he wasn't the most effective outside shooter. He really focused in on that and became a really good outside shooter in a very short amount of time. Over the last, I'll say, year and a half, 2 years, he really started to pick it up, and now he's a guy where you can't leave him open and you can't just disregard him on the outside and the perimeter. But with the ball in his hand, he's able to play with the ball and make really good reads. But I still see him sort of similar to his dad. He's more of a play for his teammates type of guy more than he is, I'm going to come out here and give you 40. He's unselfish almost to a fault in a sense, but a really good player, really athletic. And I think the biggest thing that I was just trying to see whether he was going to stretch out some more and get a couple more inches, because if you do that, then it's going to be lights out for everybody. But as is, he's going to be a really good player one way or another. And his game is going to continue to develop and grow. So I think he'll be a big part of everything that USC does going forward.
T.O., any take on the Bronny situation?
I think he's best served as a third or fourth option on the floor. And it's not because he's most talented, it's where he's most comfortable. Because there's going to be a lot of times where he's probably the most naturally talented kid on the floor. Because we're acting like he's small. He's 6'4", 210. He's a big kid. He's otherworldly athletic. There's not many people, maybe not otherworldly is the wrong phrase, but like he's top 2-3% athlete in college basketball. He'll be an above average athlete if he gets to the NBA. Like he's that kind of athlete. He's much better suited playing beside somebody who's elite, if that makes sense. I think he could have a lot of success that way, playing off 2 or 3 other really, really good players and be your fourth option. I think he could be a third or fourth option on a national championship team. I think he's that good. It's just I think he's being expedited into the process right now after missing so much time. But the natural talent, the natural ability is there, and he's certainly athletic enough, especially to get to the next level. He has that ability.
All right, let's turn to an ACC Pac-12 showdown today. Syracuse makes a statement. The Orange beat Oregon 83-63, a 20-point win for Red Autry's team in Sioux Falls. Terrence Oglesby, are the Orange for real?
I'll say this: the talent's certainly there. Like, are they for real? That's up for debate. It's a night-to-night thing, but the talent's there. Like J.J. Starling, Notre Dame transfer. He was a McDonald's All-American, 5-star kid, grew up 20 minutes from Syracuse's campus. My man wanted to come home. Judah Mintz is a sleeper pick for All-American. I've said that since the beginning of the year. The dude scores it. Benny Williams is coming into his own. They've got a lot of different guys. And to be honest with you, Malik Brown is one of my favorite players because he is so athletic and long and active. This is a Syracuse team with a lot of talent and, quite frankly, Fanta, a lot of depth. 44 points off the bench against Oregon. And they are really long. What did they hold? They held Oregon to 4 of 27 from 3. That's pretty good. And they can flip-flop back and forth between zone and man because they are playing man. And I'm going to be honest with you. I am shocked at how – I'm not going to say they're elite defensively in rotations because that wouldn't be true. But I'm shocked at how good they were considering they haven't played man-to-man defense in freaking 50 years. I'm shocked. So good for them. I feel like the talent is certainly there. They only had 3 losses. Don't look now; they're 7-3. And quite frankly, 12 out of the 15 teams in the ACC only have 3 losses. So, like, it's a better league. It's an improved league, and Syracuse is one of the most talented teams in that league. And a win against a young Oregon team certainly, helps that claim.
Jerel, are you buying Syracuse?
Yeah, and I'm going on just what T.O. say. It just is really eerie to see the Orange coming out from start to finish trying to play man-to-man defense, especially being a guy who I played in the old Big East and with the 16 team, so we got a chance to see Syracuse quite a bit. And, that was one of the biggest things is that you wanted time to kind of prep for Coach Boeheim's, patting his zone. But now, they kind of got the new era rushing in, and they're splitting it up. It's not just turning over completely, but they're playing a lot more man-to-man. They got some really good guards. I got a chance to work with and see Judah Mintz a little bit at the basketball academy, the Nike Basketball Academy, out in Oregon a few months back. Man, he's one of the best of the best. I'm with T.O. on that. I think he'll be a sleeper pick to be All-American. I think he's averaging close to 20 points a game right now, and it's just a guy who's he's twitchy. He can put the ball in the bucket. He score in a variety of ways, get downhill, get his teammates involved, get steals, get blocks, everything. So, but it was a big win for them today. A little bit of a sloppy game with both teams having like 19 turnovers, almost 40 turnovers total for the game. But, Syracuse, for the most part, handled Oregon pretty easily here and kind of just rolled it in the second half. So,
Jerel, colder in Milwaukee or if you had to go on a road trip to the Dome out at Syracuse?
My God, that's a tough one. But I think I'm gonna say Milwaukee still. I think I'm gonna stay Milwaukee. It's probably way too many walks to class from my dorm room. So you have some rough winters up there now. Yeah,
I'm going Milwaukee. It's cold in Syracuse. Don't get me wrong, but it's freezing in Milwaukee. Yeah.
You're going Milwaukee. I mean, back in that 16-team Big East, you could write a book. You had Buzz and Boeheim going up against each other when you had to go out to the Dome, and you're shaking your head.
Yep, absolutely, man, and it was an absolute beast. I still vibe for this, and T.O. may disagree because I know he's a big-time ACC guy, especially with those guys getting a good portion of our teams that ended up bailing. But, man, I still think it was the best basketball conference that's ever been created, and I truly believe that it was one of the things that sealed the deal to me when I doing my recruiting process. Was Coach Crean, who recruited me, and I played for my first 3 years, and then Buzz Williams the last year. It was one of the things that he sold me on, man, and I was just one of those guys. I wanted to be in the best conference possible and get challenged every night, because at the end of the day, I really wanted to see and test how good I was. So I knew if I could play and make it in the Big East Conference, or the conference that was being assembled, that I can kind of play and make it anywhere. And we were freshmen on the inaugural team.
Before football ruined everything, Jerel.
That's
before football ruined everything.
Yeah, look, they threw all the basketball shit to the side for sure. It means nothing.
Yep.
We're just going to start jumping all over the place. The football money is king.
I feel like we deserve a seat at the table, and we don't even get one. Like, it's crazy.
I like the way the Big East – I love the way the Big East pivoted, though. The Big East pivoted in the right way, and they kind of still – I feel like they made basketball the precedent. They made it the precedent for the Big East Conference now. The way that they pivoted and went and got Xavier, the Creightons, those type of schools. It was a great move kind of for what was to come, because I think they kind of saw that they could replace those teams. But the only way that you don't lose guys to football is going to get teams that, football isn't a deal there. Basketball is the driving force. So you got a ton of now schools that's in the Big East now that's just predominantly basketball driven schools. I know that's Marquette because, basketball is king there. That's the number one sport at the university. They're the biggest earners. That's the show. Yeah. So it just gets a different level of focus put on it. And it's great to have other schools that are kind of like or similar in that way as well.
It's true. I mean, it's true. I heard a football commercial today that Louisville had their best season in a decade. And I just thought to myself, yeah, but if you ask those fans what they would rather have, basketball being in a basketball league or their football program having a once-in-a-decade season, we all know what they would be picking. That's for a different discussion. Hey, the Cardinals won today. They blew out Pepperdine. Good for those kids. Glad that they were able to bring home a win.
Louisville's back.
Yeah, right. Let's keep it going. Let's roll this into the Big Ten, gentlemen. Let's talk about the Big Ten. The Big Ten had a big weekend. All right, we start in Indianapolis with the game of the year to date. It's Purdue. It's Arizona. Arizona had not yet lost. And Purdue wins 92-84 because Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Zach Edey, what a three-headed monster. Terrence Oglesby, what did this game say to you about the Boilermakers? And how much better do you think they are this year?
They are better. You still know what the constants are. Here's the thing. And I was looking at this the other day, and I am confused and baffled and hurt. And I'm not sure how we could change this, guys. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the Big Ten Conference. You pull up Purdue, you pull up some of these other teams, and I have to look at Fletcher Lawyer. Is he going to be able to bail you out? Because you know what you're getting from Zach Edey. You know what you're getting from Zach Edey. You have to know what you're getting from Fletcher Lawyer. And I'm going to pull up his numbers because I had them pulled up and I deleted them because I'm an idiot. But it's like he had 27, but that's fresh off a 4-point performance. And then he has 12, and then he'll have 20, and then it'll be 2. Like, it's one of those things like, is he going to be able to bail you out on a game where you're struggling to play well, to find your rhythm? Is Fletcher Lawyer going to hit shots? Because when he's really good, Purdue is the best team in college basketball. And I'm not sure there's anybody that can beat him when he's good. When he's not good, they're susceptible, because then sometimes it can feel like Zach Edey, Braden Smith, those two are going to get theirs, but it's going to be hard for them to creep above 65, 70 points. They'll be susceptible, especially to smaller teams. So I wonder, is Fletcher Lawyer going to be able to carry you through times when you can't get a bucket? You got to have somebody find one. Fletcher Lawyer can be that guy. And whenever he's good, they're great.
Jerel, what did this win for Purdue show you about this team?
It's so funny that T.O. said that, because that's the same exact thing that I had in my notes when I watched the game. And in the short terms, though, I just put it that when Fletcher Lawyer is playing that well at that high of a level and making shots at the clip, that Purdue is almost unbeatable. They're almost unbeatable. But like he said, it's just going to be about him doing it consistently. He's shown tendencies early on in the year to kind of disappear completely a little bit. Which is, not the same thing as having 12 to 14 points. It's like either he's going for 20 or he's giving you 2 or 4, and, he can't hit the backside of a barn. But when they're playing at a high level and he's making shots, they become kind of unguardable, because who do you help off of? Who's out there really on a consistent basis and that can't punish you on the offensive end? But just speaking of what I said earlier in the show, I think Purdue is just showing that, they've went and grabbed more pieces coming in from last year, and they're able to win in a variety of different ways. They can beat you in a slugfest, and they got one of the best weapons to do it in Zach Edey, or they can come out and they can drop 90 on your head, and they can have 2 or 3 guys that get close to 20 points in the game. So right now they're rolling. They're doing it in a different variety of ways, and only thing that's going to stop the Boilermakers at this point is themselves. All
right, so, hey, Fanta, I pulled up the numbers. And this is the thing that scares me. Against Arizona, 27 points. Last game against Alabama, in a closer game than I think we thought it was going to be, 4 points. Right. Against Iowa, a big-time win. Didn't necessarily need him, 12 points. Against Northwestern in a loss, 17. He was fine. Texas Southern, 5 points. Go down a couple of games, 2 points, and a win over Gonzaga. Right. I understand the ebbs and flows of what you're going to do. But the better he is, I'm telling you, he adds another dimension. We understand what Lance Jones brought to that team. He brought an added dimension, an added layer of quickness, another guy that could create a shot at the end of the shot clock if you have a trouble to get into Zach Edey. But Fletcher Lawyer, to me, is the pivot point for the Boilermakers. He is the guy that's going to either make them a national champion or an Elite Eight team, because that's their floor in my mind, is the Elite Eight this year.
Which is pretty amazing.
I'm not taking anything away. But if you want to win a national championship, you got to have your lightning rod catch fire.
Right.
And he's their lightning rod.
Right. And not only that, but, T.O., I'll follow with you here. I think the point you're trying to make there is, if he's not catching fire, the one thing that you would knock them on is that it's not like there's option B, C, D, and E. That if he's not on against the elite, somebody else can score 17, 18 points. It doesn't look like that's within this group, T.O.
No. I mean, I'm sure Lance Jones was a big-time scorer at Northern Illinois. That's where he's at. Northern or Southern Illinois?
Southern,
Southern Illinois. I knew that was right. he was a big-time scorer there. He's going to have a game or two where he explodes. Like, that's just going to happen because of, the way he's wired. They have some other guys that play a good role, but you know what you're going to get out of those two. It's that third option. Is it going to be Lance Jones? Is it going to be Fletcher Lawyer? Like, you have to have three in my mind. And they've had games where they're scoring in the 90s. I get all that. But when things are tough, when smaller teams are making shots, how's Purdue going to be able to climb out of that thing? I think it's with Fletcher Lawyer.
Any final thought on Purdue, Jerel?
They're easily the Big Ten favorite. It'll be interesting just to see if they're able to keep it rolling and sustain this wave of momentum that they're riding on right now, because they've played a hell of a non-conference schedule. In a funny way, obviously it'll get tougher with it being in conference and being more familiar with these teams and these coaches and these hostile environments. But it's just as far as competition, it ain't getting much harder than what they've played already. So it'll be interesting to see going forward. But right now, Purdue is riding high to easily the number one team in the country.
Let's go from West Lafayette to Champaign. Jeff Goodman went from Indiana to Illinois. He has been all over the place this weekend in the Midwest in the Big Ten. The Fighting Illini ranked 16th in the country now, 8-2 on the year. They opened up the game today on a 14-0 run. They beat Colgate, a well-coached Colgate team, 74-57. Coleman Hawkins with 16 points in this game. Marcus Domas, Quincy Guerrier with 15 apiece. That engine, Terrence Shannon Jr. He is that leader for the Illini. He's one of the best players in the country. And Jeff Goodman caught up with him after the Illini's 17-point win. He's our guest tonight.
All right, Terrence, win over Colgate here. Not the prettiest second half, but you were great in the first half. You've been great all year. What do you attribute the jump to? I mean, last year you had a good year. This year so far you've had a great year.
Just consistency. Just my teammates being able to play well and open the floor for me, trusting me offensively and defensively. But just being consistent and staying level-headed, I feel like that's been a big key for me.
So I think last year, remember, I was at the game in Vegas, and you shot the hell out of it. And everybody's like, all right, he's figured out a shot. And then you kind of fell off last year a little bit. This year, you've done it over a sustained stretch. Now we've been at 11 games, I think, and you've done it every game for the most part. Is it confidence? Is it reps? Why do you think you've kind of figured that out so far?
I feel like it's confidence and reps. Once when you put in a lot of work, you just trust it on the floor, and when you trust in your work, that gives you confidence. So I feel like it's a combination of both.
Those 5:30 wake-ups, those 5:30 workouts, paying off. I don't know how you get up that early, my man.
This is what I do. I'm a morning person,
You go to bed early or no?
Sometimes. Most of the time I go to bed early, but, I'm a morning person. I always kind of been a morning person, but, everybody has their way. Some people do late night. I'm just happen to go in the morning.
How good can this team be this year? Because, again, I think – the biggest question all of us had was point guard play, right? And so far, again, Ty's been good. He's a different type of point guard, and not everything falls on you. I think maybe too much fell on you a year ago.
No, man. I wasn't good for us last year. I was probably average, okay. But as far as everything all combined together, I wasn't a good leader. I wasn't consistent on the floor, and I was up and down a lot last year. But and Ty, like, man, he puts in a lot of work. He watches film, he practices his reads, and we also got Marcus and Nico. So I feel like we got a good combination of point guards and guys who can take care of the ball and run the floor for us.
Last question: what's the biggest key for this team making a run in the postseason? Because that's what everybody wants in Champaign. I know you guys are all about the process, right? Got to get better every day, every practice, every game. But everybody kind of around Champaign wants to know, right? Get past that first weekend.
I would say just rebounding. On our standards, we got defensive rebounding on there, and I feel like that's where I've been slacking at. All of us guards, we can't just rely on the big man to get the rebound, like Coleman and Dane and Quincy. We can't just rely on them to get the rebound. So once we get the rebounds, we're dangerous in transition. And when we're getting downhill, I just feel like nobody can stop us. But once we start doing a better job of that and getting more consistent with that, I feel like we'll be unbeatable.
All right, Terrence Shannon Jr., probably the best wing in America right now.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Great stuff. Illini 8-2. Domask was such a big pickup. I mean, one of those losses coming at Tennessee. There's no shame in that whatsoever. That Illini team is very, very dangerous. Speaking of dangerous, okay, we entered the season thinking Michigan State was going to be just that. They walk into Little Caesars Arena yesterday, and a 4-5 Michigan State team runs Baylor off the floor. It was 29-9 when you looked up at the scoreboard early on. I'm sure you guys like me were busy rolling around on a Saturday watching different games, but then you look at your score app and you're like, wait a minute, what? Michigan State's doing what to Baylor? That's what happened. 88-64 over the Bears. So Jerel McNeal, are you on this Michigan State bandwagon? Was yesterday the start of Thomas Izzo rallying the troops?
Yeah, I think yesterday was the obviously the back against the wall moment. The wounded animal. We kind of got to fight our way out of this hole we dug ourselves in moment. But it was much needed. It was much needed. But to be honest, I think we kind of got an opportunity just to get a small glimpse into kind of the team that everybody thought that they were signing up for this year. But more than anything, it was just great to see that edge. That was the edge that we were kind of all been looking for from a Michigan State, a Tom Izzo type of team. They came out right from tip-off and they handed it to Baylor. And there's no shame in Baylor. Obviously, it was a game that was was it in Detroit, which is essentially
it was a Michigan State.
It's a home game away from home, but at the same time, it's a Baylor team that had been rolling as well too, and they haven't played a ton of great teams, but the teams that they have played, they handled pretty well so far. But Michigan State, it was a great sign. It was great to see those guys fight, and it's going to be an uphill climb from here. Obviously, they kind of need to keep this thing trending in the right direction. But yesterday, getting their first, I would say, quality win of the year was a really good start. I'm not buying in just yet. They're going to have to put together a couple more for me to jump back on the bandwagon, but it was a good start for sure.
Collective scoring is an issue, Fanta. Collective scoring is an issue. Say that again.
Collective scoring. Explain to folks what you mean by that.
Yeah, Tyson Walker went for 25. Hogarth decided to show up. He had 14, and then Trey Holloman goes for 11. So, like, collective scoring, what happens if Tyson Walker is off? Like, it's not going to be good. And we've seen that thus far. I had a buddy of mine who is a compulsive gambler. He hit me up. He was like, hey, what do you think about this Gonzaga UConn? I said, you go ahead and ride UConn.
Was it Rob Dauster?
It wasn't Rob, because Rob gambles for UConn every game anyway because he's a degenerate. But this is a different friend of mine. He's like, hey, what's up with UConn Gonzaga? I was like, hey, you want free money? Go ahead and grab UConn. And he goes, oh, okay. Well, okay. So he wins. The next day he calls me. He's like, hey, man, look. He's like itching. He's like, what do we think? Baylor's only 3.5-point favorites over Michigan State. And everybody's calling me and telling me to hammer Baylor. I was like, that's a bad idea, because this is a dog with his back up against the wall, and it's a big dog, and he's got a couple bruises. But these dudes, when they play hard and they play well together, Michigan State's still that team that we thought about. They've got to figure out other ways to score. It can't just be Tyson Walker, because let's be honest, Tyson Walker's 6'1", $190. Like, that's tough. And you can be a go-to scorer, but it's really hard to be a go-to scorer at that size, especially when you get into the tournament, especially when you get into Big Ten play. He's going to be good. I get all that. He'll have a great year. He might even be first team all Big Ten. But you have to find more ways to score if you're Michigan State. This was a home game for them and an absolute must-win situation for them to really generate any type of major momentum, because they've missed out on opportunities for resume wins. And a lot of people are like, well, it's Michigan State. They're going to get the benefit of the doubt. And they're right. They're right. But you got to have at least one big non-conference win, especially with as many as they've played. I also think that Michigan State's going to look really good over the next 4 games. Oakland is good. Rocket Watts, Michigan State transfer, is there. Campy, we all know he does a good job over there. Oakland's going to be good, but they should win that game. They play Stony Brook. They do a pretty good job. Michigan State should win that game. And then they go up against Indiana State and Josh Schertz. That's going to be a tougher game than I think people realize. And then you have Penn State. After that, you're jumping in it toes deep. They got Northwestern right after that, and Boo Buie, who's the best guard in that conference right now. So I'm curious to see, can Michigan State let this snowball keep getting bigger? Can you generate some momentum? And can you find a consistent second score? That's the big question.
We'll see if they're able to do that. Hoggard has been steadier. The big thing for me, how do you find more scoring? Michigan State had 21 fast break points in the win over Baylor. They got out on the run a little bit more, and that created some easier scoring opportunities for the Spartans. Hey, we're going to take a quick timeout on After Dark. After this, we check in on the Blue Bloods. Kansas winning at Assembly Hall. Kentucky beating North Carolina. I'll ask these guys about those teams, and then we'll jump into our Sunday Superlatives, best win of the week, stars of the week, whatever these guys got as we wrap up a Sunday night edition of the Field of 68 After Dark.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook for this college basketball season. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks and predictions throughout the college basketball season. And we are going to have special offers for you, the listeners and the viewers on the Field of 68 each and every week during the season. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FIELD1500 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager on BetMGM Sportsbook. Here's what you got to do. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD1500. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FIELD1500 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient for me when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly. When crossing state borders, just log into your existing account instead of having to create new accounts in each state that you go to. And most importantly, I got to let you know, we do have some fun stuff coming up for this college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, my personal favorite, parlay odds boosts. So download the BetMGM app today.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. John Fanta, Terrence Oglesby, Jerel, McNeal with you. So, on a loaded Saturday of college basketball, 2 Blue Bloods men. Top 15 showdown in Atlanta. Hot Atlanta. Kentucky, North Carolina. Place was rocking. Final score, Big Blue Nation 87, Tar Heels 83. Kentucky had 8 guys with 7 or more points in this game. Terrence Oglesby, give me your proclamation right now today on what you believe John Calipari has in this Kentucky team potentially.
Potentially a Final Four team. With them back in the mix. Here's the thing that just stuck out to me so much. When Kentucky went to their bench, they brought in Reed Sheppard. When North Carolina went to their bench, they brought in Paxton Wojcik. There's levels. There's levels. I think the starting lineups were very comparable. Both are very good. But the addition of Aaron Bradshaw over the last 3 games, you saw what he could do. 7'1", silky smooth jump shot on the perimeter. And we all were worried, like, hey, are they going to play different now that they're going to have 2 bigs in the game with him and Trey Mitchell? You don't have to offensively, because Aaron Bradshaw can space the floor a little bit. How good was he? Guys, after the first 8 minutes of that game, I got goosebumps. I was like, man, this is big-time college basketball. I got freaking Raph on the call. We've got a technical with John Calipari, and I'm pretty sure Hubert tried to rip off his jacket. This is a good Saturday. This is a good Saturday. It was great basketball. And, look, it's going to be ugly at times. It's college hoops, but that was 2 athletic teams. I'm going to say one thing, the unsung guy for Kentucky, I love Adu Thiero, man. You want to talk about a freaking athlete, understands his role, climbs the backboard, and then tries to block shots. He's all over the place. He doesn't force the issue, and he lets some of these guys be guys. And one more thing, funniest thing I think I could throw out there, but with Rob Dillingham and RJ Davis, it might as well be the Spider-Man meme. Like, they are very similar, right? I think Dillingham doesn't have as much like opportunity as RJ had his freshman year, but they're the same guy. I mean, explosive scores. I think Dillingham's quicker, obviously, like just shiftier, and he's bouncy and does all those things. But man, what a competitive, fun atmosphere of a game. People were on their feet. You heard Go Big Blue. You heard UNC. That was high-level college basketball right after exam week, right before Christmas, when we needed it the most. Big-time game for both teams, and I fell in love with Kentucky again.
Jerel, fact or fiction? Kentucky has the most upside of any team in college basketball.
Oh, I think it's a no-brainer. Man. And I mean, look, Big Blue is back. They're back, man, and they're doing it, the old school Calipari way with the young guys. Obviously, like we said, it's gonna be some learning and some growing pains as they go. But my God, are those guys talented? And then just with the addition of Bradshaw, man, it just gives them a completely different element, and it also creates different ways that they can play because they're now used to playing without them. With Trey Mitchell playing some 5, and that gives them a different dynamic. They're a little bit smaller, but they're able to space the floor and let a lot of those guys, those guards, those young guards, Wagner and Dillingham, get downhill and get paint touches and get other guys easy opportunities, man. But just overall, man, just what a fun game. What a great game. Great weekend just for the sport of college basketball, man, to see these two teams battling it out. And Kentucky got up a little bit, and you see UNC grinding their teeth, and they start to battle back. And RJ Davis was spectacular again. Those guys getting it going. But I'm looking at the battles, the game inside the game, the little tiny battles. I'm watching Big Bradshaw as a freshman down there battling in the post with Baycott. Not wavering, not trying to give up. Obviously he got him a little bit on the height size, but Baycott was a lot stronger. So, man, it's just a fun game to watch. Rob Dillingham is probably the most electric player in college basketball, man. That kid has absolute juice. Just fun to watch, man. He got some giddy up to him. He gets it going. He can make shots from all over the floor, man. What a great talented two teams, and just a great game, like I said, for the sport. And man, things are looking up though down in Lexington, man. This should be a fun team to watch the rest of the way and monitor. But they got a chance to do something special.
Now Shadek Taylor, we have a YouTube commenter, okay? Shadek Taylor, T.O. says, let's not forget they got smacked by UNC Wilmington.
They fell asleep, and freshmen were freshmen.
Yeah,
and let's keep in mind too, like, Takeo Siddle's no bum. That dude can coach, and they've got good players over there, and they caught them at the right time. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not even going to address that. Who is this person? Who are you?
Shadek Taylor. Shadek, what I would say is, did you ever in your freshman year just no show a class, fall asleep at an 8 a.m.? We've all been there. Okay, I mean, Jerel was a 3.8 student. T.O. was 4.1 or something, but we've all been there. We've all we've all fallen asleep. Right.
Hey,
we've all fallen
personality, asleep. Baby.
Yeah, right.
It ain't
exactly.
Let me say that.
All right, before your Sunday superlatives, let's get to Kansas here. So Kansas and Indiana, this was a wild game. It felt like it went 3 hours, right? Because Indiana gets out to the lead. It feels like they've got control of this game. And then Kansas with Kevin McCullough, KJ Adams, and Hunter Dickinson. And Bill Self said this. By getting Hunter Dickinson, it allows KJ to play his natural position and be comfortable. But nobody's more comfortable right now than Kevin McCullough Jr., Jerel McNeal. What do you make of how Self has done it this time with Kansas?
Man, he's done a great job thus far, and to be honest with you, I'll take a note, and I'll say this: I've seen it a little bit more, and I started to become a little concerned about him just out of the Jeff Goodman book. They struggle at times to make outside shots consistently, and it kind of bogs their offense down a little bit, especially when game plans are kind of roped around, slowing Dickinson down, man. But like you said, McCullough has been an absolute beast. My God, I think he shot 16 free throws against Indiana. Harris continues to show up the most when they need him. And this is a team that's had some real gut check wins, being down in the second half a number of times against really good opponents. And and not folding and wavering. Those guys have, to their credit, they got a more experienced team. They got older guys, and they don't get rattled easily. They just keep playing. They understand it's a long game. And they came out and did the same thing against Indiana. They were down like 8 or 9 points in the second half with about 14 minutes to go, and I kind of just sat up in my chair and really dug in because I was just expecting and waiting on them. Like, Kansas is gonna make a run. They're gonna put together a few stops and a few plays, and then we'll have a ball game. And that was a fun one to watch as well too, especially doing it in a hostile road environment, a place Hunter Dickinson has been to before and had success. So it was just a fun game to see, man. But the Jayhawks are looking really good, and they're going to be poised, and they're going to be around, for the long run this year. They're one of the top 5 teams in college basketball for sure.
Tia?
Here's my thing, John. Whenever you play against Kansas, and Indiana played as well as they could, they got up 13 with, I want to say it was right at 15 minutes to go or so. And here's the thing with Indiana, that was as well as they're going to play. Trey Galloway was awesome. That was a game of all games really for Trey Galloway, and a guy that can play. I mean, but he's not somebody that I think you can rely on to get 25 a night. But here's the thing: when you play Kansas, it doesn't matter how much you're beating them by. It doesn't matter where you're at, where the momentum is, or how loud the crowd is. They're just going to do this. They're just steady the entire time, and it's just going to keep going. And the reason for that is they have a young man named DeJuan Harris, who is still the most underrated player in college basketball. He is a winner by all occasions. I understand he's not the most productive. He doesn't do this, that, or the third, but he's never rattled, and he's one of the best point guard defenders in college basketball. And he continues to be that. And they're not going to change their approach. From the first minute to the 40th minute, you have to beat the Jayhawks. They're not going to beat themselves all that much. Do you want them to shoot it better? Sure. That's all well and good. But their approach is going to be the same night in and night out. And I actually kind of I equate them a little bit in the NBA. It's like playing the Miami Heat. Like, they might not be the most talented team, and Kansas is the most talented team most nights, so I'm not comparing that. But you know what they're going to be for the entire 48 minutes, the Miami Heat. They're going to move the ball. They're going to continue to play. They're going to do all the things that they do. Kansas with Bill Self, who I have more respect for than almost any coach in college basketball. They are going to continue to attack the same way for the entire game, 40 minutes. You have to beat them for 40 minutes to get a win against Kansas.
All right, let's get to Sunday Superlatives here to cap off the show. Terrence Oglesby, the most impressive win of the weekend in college basketball for you was?
Kentucky over North Carolina. The manner in which they did it, they were able to jump out, get a big lead. There were some things to learn from. That was huge. And the player that shined most, I'm just going to jump right into it because he's on the same team. I thought Aaron Bradshaw, just so impressive. It's my first time to really get a look at him, a glance at what kind of talent he's been. He's put on 20 pounds over the past, 6 months or less? Like, it's amazing what happens with some of these big guys when they put on weight. They're gangly, they don't move a certain way, and they put on weight, and it's like it changes their gait, how they approach the rim, their confidence. It's huge. Aaron Bradshaw, my player that shined the most in my mind.
Jerel McNeal, the most impressive win of the weekend.
Yeah, most impressive win, I'm going to go with Michigan State. Obviously, like we said earlier, they kind of had their backs against the wall, but man, it was an impressive win through and through, from the jump ball all the way to the final buzzer, man. And that's the team that we kind of expected. So I know we kind of been giving them some shit on here for the last couple weeks, but hey, you gotta tip your cap and give credit where it's credit due. They got a good quality win with that one, and for most impressive player, I'm gonna go Fletcher Lawyer. Fletcher Lawyer for Purdue. He showed up big. I think he finished with 27 points. He was a big part of what got them over the hump that game against Arizona. And like we talked about earlier in the show, when he's making shots at a high rate and he's putting in 4 to 5 threes a game, Purdue becomes a problem that becomes really hard to solve. So
I'm going to go in a different direction here and not be the same old song because we've talked about a bunch of games. But to me, I saw a halftime score yesterday, and I thought to myself, man, that's tough. They missed their opportunity at home. I really thought that. It was 39-32 at the half. FedEx Forum, Memphis. Wild crowd, wild atmosphere, elite fan base.
Look at you.
And I saw Clemson was up 7. And here's what I believe. I believe Clemson is the best team in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I've said it before. We'll say it again. I really believe that they will win the ACC. I think they're tough, balanced, and they're disciplined. For Memphis to come back and beat Clemson, that's what I was impressed with on Saturday. Because I thought Clemson was going to be able to either pull away or just be too tough for Memphis to overcome. Memphis did overcome, and they showed their toughness. And Penny Hardaway's done a very nice job with this team. Memphis wins 79-77. I'm buying the Tigers as a top 20 team in college hoops. That's refreshing for college basketball. Memphis is 8-2. David Jones is big time. Javon Quinterly is playing under control enough. And this team's physical. You know they're going to defend. And I'm going to predict it now because why the hell not? And I hope that if we could vaulted this, I'd love to. Memphis is going to play Kentucky in the NCAA Tournament this March. I'm calling it right now. I don't know where it's going to be. Might be round of 32. Might be the Sweet 16. I just think that matchup's going to happen. John Calipari's back. Memphis is back. That's my most impressive win of this weekend is Memphis. Jerel, we heard Aaron Bradshaw for TO for his most impressive player. Jerel McNeal, your star of the weekend.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go Michigan State again, and I'm gonna go Tyson Walker. I think he's just been rock solid, pretty much start to finish, and kind of like T.O. alluded to a little bit, it's make or break with that, and that's a lot of pressure to put on a guy where it's consistently either he's gonna score 20 a night, or we're not gonna really have a shot to win the game, man. And he's been showing up and showing out pretty much each and every night, and he kind of put on a really good show against Baylor too, man. So that's why I'm rolling with for my most impressive performance.
I'm gonna go with Kevin Cross, 6'8" senior at Tulane. Kevin Cross has put up back-to-back triple-double performances with 20-plus points a game in each of those triple-doubles. So shout out there to Kevin Cross. 20, 10, and 11 against Southern. Against Furman, he had 25, 12, and 12.
Yep.
He deserves the credit.
In a great game.
Great game. In the last Sunday superlative here, all right? The team that you wish you saw more from. The team that you wish you saw more from. Terrence Oglesby.
Guys, you know what? We brought up Michigan State and their big win, and it was kind of like, well, you scheduled all these teams in the non-conference, and there's one more team like that. Alabama. They lose to Purdue. We all get that one in a close one, but they lost. And then they lose again to Creighton. At Creighton, I understand I understand how hard that is. I'm waiting for this talented Alabama team to really start winning games. Alabama's 6-4. They're very talented. Aaron Estrada is really good. Mark Sears has been sensational. They've got talented guys. It's a matter of when are they going to take that next step? 6-4 this early in the season, and Kim Pom still got them high. I get all that. It's just when is Alabama going to turn all that talent into wins on the floor? And they got another tough one coming up here against Arizona, December 20th. Going to be a hell of a game. Are they going to finally be able to get over that hump and get a win against a big-time opponent in the non-con?
Jerel?
I'm going to go Gonzaga. I'm going to go to Zags. I think obviously they ran into a buzzsaw a little bit with UConn, and the team I think is playing as good as basketball as anybody right now, man. But the Zags got 3 losses now, and they've shown some hints that are not really being able to get stops when they need to. Obviously, they can score with some of these teams and put up enough points to win games. But I just assumed that game was going to be a little bit more competitive, especially with it being on the other coast and UConn having to travel for it. So, but they didn't show me as much as I thought I would see from the Zags. But it'll be interesting to watch going forward.
I'm going to go with Pepperdine. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Well, they lost by what? They lose by 30? Okay,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to go with Kansas State. Okay, Kansas State, you're on your home floor. You scored 46 against Nebraska? I'm sorry, Wildcats. That's a very, very disappointing defeat. That's a tough loss to take. Nebraska's better. They're improved. But you shouldn't be scoring 46 points at home against Nebraska. Kansas State shot 4 for 30 from 3. Tio, 4 for 30.
That ain't it. That's not going to win a lot of games, Fanta. Not today's game.
That ain't it. Disappointing loss for the Wildcats. That's a team that didn't show me enough this weekend. Toast of the night. Toast of the night. Let's go. I got my Cleveland Browns cup here. I got to toast my brownies. But Terrence Oglesby, who you toasting?
You know who I'm toasting, Fanta? I'm toasting the resilience of the Louisville Cardinals. You know why? Because John Fanta came on this show, this very show, and blasted Louisville Nation. And what'd they do? Kenny Payne responded. 30-point win over Pepperdine. My man Brandon Hutley Hatfield went for 20 and 12. I got to throw out a Nashville native out there when I can. My toast of the night goes to the Louisville Cardinals. Fighting adversity, fighting John Fanta.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, yeah, I'd love to drink to that. If you're motivated by me doing that, and it's humans on the line, Kenny Payne's a good guy. It's nothing about the person. Kenny's a good guy. It's just to lose to Arkansas State, have to send multiple statements out about one player on your team. That was why I was fired up. I was fired up for you, Louisville Nation. I want you to be like Kentucky and Memphis are right now. It's better for college hoops when you're good. Jerel, toast of the night.
Toast of the night is going to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. A convincing road victory against K-State tonight. Rink Mass had another really big game. Him and Juwan Gary inside. The two big fellas held it down for him. Another really big win. And to be honest, the Cornhuskers might be inching their way toward a top 25 ranking here pretty soon if they can keep it rolling.
Hey, Jerel, Fanta called that. Fanta called that one.
I did. We had that our bold prediction show. Nebraska has not been to the NCAA tournament in a decade. And they are what Northwestern was in the Big Ten last year. I believe Nebraska is this year. You know why? Their average age is like 23. They're old. Right. Fred Hoiberg. Yeah. Fred Hoiberg has an old team. And Fred Hoiberg's not a bad coach. It's just it's not the easiest place to win, to plug and play. He now has his guys, and it's more than just K-State Tominaga. They play hard. They have balance. Good for them. Good for Nebraska. Great fan base for any sport. So yes. I'm excited for them.
They're feeding off the momentum generated by volleyball. They're feeding off the momentum generated by volleyball.
Yeah. That's right. Even though, Texas won the national title.
Sure, Nebraska.
Yeah, right. Texas won the national title in volleyball. Yeah, it sure ain't football's right. I am going to toast. Dagan Hughes, are you allowed to hop on? Can we hear you, Dagan, on the show?
I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. So Dagan and I are going to toast.
This is right. This is true.
The Seton Hall Pirates. Right, Dagan?
Let's go.
Yeah, we're going to toast.
Big win for the Pirates.
Big win for the Pirates. So the Pirates have had a tough start to the season. They lost last week to Rutgers, but in their last non-conference chance against a power conference team, they played Missouri out in Kansas City. Guys, this was an NIL game as well. So they got a nice chunk of change in their NIL pocket, 6 figures, okay? They got paid. So look at it this way. Some power conference programs that need the NIL money, it's their equivalent of a buy game, right? They get some NIL cash. Oh, wait a minute. They went to Kansas City and won? Yes, they did. Shaheen Holloway's Seton Hall Pirates win 93-87. Pirates are 7-4. They still have a pulse. They had to win this game. They did. Alamir Dawes goes for 25 points. He was a Clemson guy at one time. Dylan Adewusu, 20 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds. Seton Hall shot 44% from 3. A toast to Shaheen Holloway and the Pirates, who welcome in Rob Dauster's UConn Huskies Wednesday night. Who's going to win that game, Dagan?
Big game.
I hope it's the Pirates. I say that with very little confidence, but I hope it's the Pirates.
Right. I mean, for your paycheck's sake, maybe UConn, I don't know,
we got to be careful over here. We got to be careful.
Right. For Dauster family Christmas, UConn. That's going to do it for us tonight. Gentlemen, thank you to Dagan Hughes. Thank you to Terrence Oglesby, Jerel McNeal. I'm John Fanta. We're back with you this week. There are some interesting games on the college hoop slate with finals in the rearview mirror, and this upcoming Saturday won't be this past Saturday, but it's still going to bring some great games. The likes of Arizona, FAU being one of them out in Vegas. That'll be interesting to see how that goes down. And you said it, T.O., Arizona and Alabama as well.
Gosh,
who will be number one tomorrow? Unbelievable. It's why you credit those teams that are willing to challenge each other, and we saw that plenty this weekend. Brand new DTF podcast tomorrow. We're with you all week on After Dark. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.